Welcome to Between the Lines. I'm Esther Hatch. I'm here with Tracy Hunter Abramson, Shauna and Bessie, Sarah Eden, and today we have a special guest, Rachel Wagner, who is a film critic and also another podcaster. She does the Hallmarkies podcast, and I've been lucky enough to be a guest on her show, which I have loved every chance I've had a chance to do that. And today we're going to be talking about film adaptations, and especially bringing this up partially because the new Persuasion just came out, and Rachel had me on her podcast and we talked about it. And it was very interesting to see the differing views about what makes a good film adaptation. What are people looking for when one of their favorite books becomes a movie? So we're really excited to have you here today, Rachel. Could you give us a quick introduction of all your platforms and all the things you do?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This is great. The most popular thing that I do is called the Hallmarkies podcast. I'm the host and founder, and we and a bunch of my friends, we talk about all things rom-com, holiday related, and anything that's on Hallmark Channel. We talk about, and it's just a ton of fun. We even talk about books once a month, me and my friend Bree. And then I also am a film critic, and I recently have been dabbling into theater criticism too, which has been a lot of fun.
Ooh. That's awesome.
Keep busy.
So, where you've done some film critic work, one thing that would be interesting for us as writers is to ask if you feel like there's a certain book genre or a style of writing that lends itself better to movie adaptations than others.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because there's obviously good and bad movies in every genre. But I feel like maybe the first thing I thought of was comic books as a genre, because, I mean, there's obviously a lot of terrible comic book adaptations, but because they provide the pictures and the character designs and the world building, it's all kind of done for you, and they're not like especially verbose, and usually the plots aren't like super complex. So I feel like they're one of the easier genres.
Well, it's true that, all the Marvel movies and that genre are huge. They're huge.
Yeah. So that was the first one I thought of. I think also like fairy tales. Anything where you have kind of like a really simplistic moral of like good and evil, and I think something like that's going to be pretty easy to translate. Again, there's terrible ones, but it's going to be. Don't need to be reminded of Red Riding Hood, from a while back. But I think that helps. The more complex the world building, the more complex the plot. I think the harder it is to translate. That's why there's so many terrible sci-fi movies.
Yeah, never thought of it that way.
It's true, and you think about how many versions of Cinderella there are.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good.
Yeah.
And I will watch. Good. I was gonna say I will watch all of them.
Every single one.
Yeah. So.
Right. So I think we hear this a lot, especially because we're book people. But I think one of the most common things people say when talking about book adaptations into movies is the book was better. You hear that all the time. The book was better. The book was better. So I'm really curious if there is a book to movie adaptation that, at least for you felt like the movie was better.
Yeah, I have a couple. I actually did a video on my YouTube channel a couple months ago about this. But one of the ones that I always talk about is The Princess Bride. I just didn't like the book. I thought that, like, in the movie where they have the grandpa and the young boy interrupting the flow of things was kind of charming. And in the book, it's the author, and he's just making all this commentary. I found it very annoying. I know I'm in the minority. I feel like most people don't agree with me on that, but I just didn't like the book. Another one that I think the movie is a lot better than the book is Mary Poppins. I just found the book to be really dull and lacking in any kind of whimsy or charm. I mean, it might have helped both of those. I saw the movie first, so maybe I was biased, but that's one I thought of. And then also, this is also hardcore Harry Potter people disagree with me on this, but I prefer the Order of the Phoenix movie over the book. because the book has like angsty Harry for a long time.
Yeah, that was
and
a hard one to get through.
Not my favorite. So
especially those of us who are reading about angsty teens while trying to raise angsty teens. I was like, I can't handle more hormones. I need a break.
It's so true.
Your theory that perhaps seeing the movie before you've read the book maybe is an influence, because I was the same way with Princess Bride. I think I liked the book as much as I did because I liked the movie. Mm-hmm. I think if I had done it in the opposite order, I might not have. There's something about the way they frame it around that relationship between the grandson and the grandfather that I think, I don't know. I agree with you. I think that is absolutely a case where I liked the movie better.
Yeah. Another one that's interesting is The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which was actually, it's interesting because it was adapted and directed by the author of the book. So I feel like that was intentional. Like he actually made it better.
Interesting.
Oh, wow. So I know one of the hardest things when you're looking at trying to take a book and turn it into a screenplay is trying to trim everything down and trying to keep the core of the plot. And, you mentioned some different, genres that work a little, type of writing that works a little better. Even when you have to trim a lot out, can the right casting make up for it?
I would say yes and no. There are certain scripts that nobody is going to be able to save. Like nobody was making that Dr. Dolittle movie good with Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. is an amazing actor. He couldn't save it.
Even that couldn't save it.
No. Yeah. So there's some that are beyond beyond saving. But I think that you can forget the kind of weakness maybe in an adaptation if you're really feeling the chemistry, especially in a romance.
Yeah.
That will make a big difference. And I'll be much more forgiving. Also, I don't know, I feel like certain books are just really hard to adapt. And so I'm a little more forgiving. Like Mansfield Park, I think is really hard. So the two adaptations we have, I'm a little more forgiving of those because I think it's a hard book to adapt. Yeah. But yeah, I think the chemistry can help a lot. I mean, something like Love and Friendship, as far as Jane Austen, I mean, that has almost nothing to do with the book. It's got I don't know why they named it that because it's Lady Susan, but it's titled Love and Friendship. But I really enjoy it because Kate Beckinsale is great and really funny, and it's just kind of subversive, and I think the script is good. So yeah, it can help. That's for sure. Okay, and I'm going to ask a follow-up question. What do you think? Do you think that authors, I know a lot of times people are like, well, I wouldn't want to turn my book over to somebody else's for a screenplay. Do you think authors can just automatically like, oh, I can just write a screenplay? Or I think that it's a lot harder than it looks. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a writer, so I don't know for sure, but I've talked to a lot of writers, and I do think writing a screenplay is a very different beast than writing a novel. Especially if you're writing for made-for-TV movies, which is what I cover a lot of, because there's so many things that you have to consider when the ad breaks are, when that you have to have it kind of build right up to the perfect spot where you're going to need an ad break, and you might have product placement that you have to put in. I mean, just stuff like that you wouldn't even think of. But it's definitely, people think they watch these Hallmark movies and think, oh, I could do that. It's super easy. It's actually
that's more complex than it looks, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fascinating to me. So they actually do have to put in the ad breaks. Are they given the time that they need between each section? Because I feel like the ads don't all come at the same amount of distance between them.
They're pretty close. I think there's 7 ad breaks in every movie. And they're going to be, they might not be exactly the same, but they're going to be pretty close.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to ask, we've talked about books or genres that lend themselves to adaptations, etc. Books that maybe didn't work in adaptations. Is there a book you would love to see be adapted either for, made for TV movie or, to the big screen?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I would love to see The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle. It's a mid-grade book about this girl who ends up on this pirate ship, and she basically ends up becoming a pirate. It's really fun. I can't believe I don't really understand why it hasn't been made into a movie.
That sounds fabulous.
It's a Newbery winner. I mean, it wasn't like some obscure book. So I don't really understand why that one hasn't been made into a movie. I think it would be really fun. Also, we've gotten a mini series for Elizabeth Gaskell's books, North and South, and
North and
Wives
South.
and Daughters. But I would love to
yes.
see an actual feature film. Like, I would love to see Hollywood put some money behind it, and you know, I think that those books have so much potential to be
they've got
really
such great
fun
characters.
Yeah.
and not just series.
That just scares me a little because the BBC is so good. I would be I mean, like I want it. It's like I'm torn on that. Like I would love to see it in movie form, but also like how do you improve?
Well, maybe they'd have to do it like Harry Potter, where you had to draw the line and say every actor had to be British.
Yeah,
that means Sean could be in the cast.
Sean could be in the cast.
I'll be an extra in the middle.
I mean, he's not British, but I always wanted for them to make John Thornton, Michael Fassbender. I think he's Austrian, something like that. He's European.
He could be British.
That's right. American audiences won't know the difference.
Yeah.
Or Hollywood.
Accents. Yeah.
And I would love that. I think that would be really great.
Well, I think we can't end this episode without talking a little bit about the new Persuasion. We did a podcast about it, and we talked for how long? An hour and a half about the movie. And Rachel and I had some very similar thoughts about it, and also some different thoughts about it. I think there were things I definitely enjoyed, but things that really took me away from it. So I'm curious what you think. Why was Persuasion, first of all, why is it a hard movie to adapt? But also, what choices did they make that maybe made it harder than it should have been?
I think it's hard to adapt because so much of the drama happens off stage, I guess you'd say, outside of the book. It happened before, when they were dating before, when they were young. It happens when in letters that she gets from like Louisa, about Louisa Musgrove and things like that. And so a lot of that's hard, I think, to translate it's hard to make that cinematic and make it exciting.
Right.
And also, I just don't think we so often have heroines these days that are soft and kind and sweet. We tend to have more heroines that are strong and tough and or on the other hand, sassy and strong-willed.
Right.
So I think Anne is a tougher kind of character to bring to the screen.
So they just didn't. I think based on our conversation last time, they didn't really bring Anne into that movie.
And I was so disappointed because I was really pulling for this because people were like really down on the trailer, and I was like, just give it a chance, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And, like, normally I am very forgiving. I mean, we talked, Esther, about this one with Alicia Witt called Modern Persuasion, where it's like a modern setting, and it was eviscerated on Letterboxd and terrible reviews. But I thought it was enjoyable. I thought it was a worthwhile attempt. Not perfect, but I mean,
I actually just saw that last week.
Oh, you did?
I did. It was cute.
You hate it?
No, it was cute. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
you had to take it for what it was.
Yeah. That's what I felt. I agree. And so I'm very forgiving of these movies. And I mean, to me, the actual final kind of ridiculous blow in this movie is that they try to sell Mr. Elliot as the romantic hero of the story.
What?
Yeah,
Okay.
at the end, they have his wedding, and they're like, "Don't be afraid to love whoever you want to love," and they have a.
Okay, Sarah is like seriously struggling right now.
We better.
Oh, sorry, I should have said spoiler.
Well, no, I don't plan to see it.
Okay.
I saw enough in the trailer to know they've ruined my favorite Austen, so I don't plan to see it. I don't know if I can be okay, guys.
No, literally, it's the end
It's
of the
okay,
movie.
Sarah.
The
It's
climax,
pretend.
The big message is his wedding, and love whoever you want to love. And I was just kind of like, "What's this? This is some kind of other world."
Wow.
I do think the fact that it was Henry Golding made me very forgiving of anything they did to his character.
That's the trick to an adaptation. Cast Henry Golding.
Yes. But I will say, like, I kept waiting for that shoe to drop of like, well, they think he's rich. They think he's doing these nice things. They think, and then it never dropped. Like, yeah, that was an interesting choice for sure for that movie.
Yeah, my friend Melissa Leilani Larson, she's a local playwright, and she did a version that was at UVU just this last. Did you see it, Sarah?
Oh, I've seen it in 3 different theaters now where it's been performed because her adaptation is amazing.
It's so good. And what she did that's so brilliant, and I think this is the way that you'd have to do the movie to make it like a really great adaptation, because the ones we've had have been fine, but except for this recent one. But what she does is she has 2 parts of the stage. One part is the young Wentworth and Anne, different actors. And then the other part is the current situation.
Very clever.
That was, I thought, extremely smart. And I think that is the way to do it if you're going to do it in a movie, because, and to have different actors playing the young, and I think that would be good.
I did love in this one, they did open with like a flash scene of their previous relationship. And I thought that was, no, I don't think any of the other adaptations had done that.
Yeah.
And I thought that was actually really beautiful. It got me like excited, like maybe they're going to pull this off. And there were definitely things I liked about it. And I love that they're making movies of Jane Austen's, but it did not feel like Persuasion to me. So that was hard to get behind.
I mean, it just felt like a completely different character than Anne Elliot. I mean, she's breaking the fourth wall. She's really snarky. Frankly, you have a hard time believing that she would be persuaded, this character that we're introduced to. It does not feel like somebody who would be easily influenced by anybody. And she's breaking the fourth wall. She's got jam on her face. She's getting drunk. She literally at one point pours a bottle of wine on her head, and has wine all over her hair. I mean, and don't even get me started on the historical inaccuracies of the costumes, the hair.
Sarah, you cannot watch this.
Have to be
This is breaking me. I think we may need to move on.
Well, so you've heard it from us. Watch Persuasion with an open mind if you want to enjoy it.
Or avoid it if you think it's going to kill your brain.
If it's going to hurt your soul, you can skip it. Thanks so much for joining us, Rachel. We loved having you on. It's so fun to hear a different side of these stories, of the cinematic side. And will you tell our audience where they can find you if they want to read, or watch some of your podcasts?
Yes, you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. Also, you can find me at the Hallmarkies Podcast.
Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate everyone listening in. Join us next time on Between the Lines.
Yes.